the world's greatest driver made a mistake, okay?
Yeah, you don't go there. But
got hung up between those two cars. The 45 was going to be maybe 15th place car. But when the 5 car spun, then he had just made a pit stop and got tired. So I think he'd run 2 laps. I tell you, that last lap, he come in that third turn, I know he never lifted.
You know, getting back to the 43, they worked on him all day and finally got it where he could halfway drive it and finish 22nd. That ain't good, but he beat some pretty decent cars.
Yeah, but he got so far behind.
Yeah.
His speed, if he'd have been running 5th or 6th, his speed was good enough for 5th or 6th.
Late in the race. But, okay, bud.
We got home from a heck of a race, didn't we, buddy?
Yeah. It was more fun watching it when I got up on the truck with you about 30 laps to go. I didn't know you could see that much from
You can
the
see
truck.
about at least half the race.
But I stayed on the 43 pit box most of the day, and that wasn't much fun.
That's why they was confused then, right?
Yeah, that's the reason I kept you confused for 85 years.
Okay.
Yeah, it was, I guess, Richard, the best cars stayed up front all day.
All day.
And
no matter what.
You know,
I was sitting up on top of the truck, and you watch them as they make pit stops and stuff. How does people in the grandstand really keep up with, who's leading and who's not? I guess over the loudspeaker or something.
Me sitting on the pit box, I stayed confused too because I couldn't see all the numbers on the screens where the engineers and everybody sat. But back over my shoulder, there was a big
screen TV.
A big scoreboard.
Oh, okay.
So that really helped them.
Yeah, okay.
And where you was at, you couldn't see that because I looked for it.
Yeah.
But there was one good Ford.
Yeah, the 12 car.
I thought 2 good Chevrolets. You said 3 because you brought
the 9, the 24, and the 5.
They were 3 pretty good Toyotas.
Yeah.
The 11, the 20, and the 45.
Right.
The winner. So,
when the race first started, the 45 took off. I said, okay, we always have one car that sort of dominates. I said, okay, the 45 is going to dominate. And, after they made pit stops and stuff, he got back 4th or 5th. That's where he ran all day. You know what I mean? He never got back to the lead except sometimes maybe on caution flags or before they made pit stops, he'd stay out. But what really confused me about the whole deal was how they played their strategy at the last of the race. Everybody stopped, and they stayed out, and they stayed out, and stayed out. And they was getting outrun he was getting outrun maybe a second a lap, but he was so far ahead, he was a lap ahead because when you made a pit stop, you lost a lap. And
he was going to lose the race over that, too.
And it took 35 seconds to get around the racetrack. So the deal was he stayed out, and he stayed out, and he stayed out. And everybody else had made their pit stops, and everything was kind of scattered out. And so with, 14, 15 laps or something, 13, he stopped to get fuel.
Yeah.
Okay, well, he wound up being exactly a lap behind. And he had just passed the leader when the 5 car done his deal.
Yeah. That put him back on the lead lap.
Yeah, the world's greatest driver made a mistake, okay?
You don't go there. But
got hung up between those 2 cars. And so from the standpoint, the 45 was going to be maybe 15th place car.
Exactly.
Okay? But when the 5 car spun, then he had just made a pit stop and got tires. So I think he'd run 2 laps. And then when they throw the caution, then everybody else stops, and that puts him up front, And then when the race started, a couple of cars that had brand new tires beat him for a couple of laps. You know what I mean? They got around him and got on. And then I tell you, that last lap, he come in that third turn, I know he never lifted. He got up against that wall, and he come around there, buddy, and just blowed the and basically, again, like I say, he was probably, I won't say he was the best car, but he was as good as anybody, and still wound up winning the race. But circumstances, the way they played their strategy, I didn't really understand it, but they couldn't have played it any better. I mean, that's just where circumstances.
Well, it fell in their hands.
That's what I'm saying.
They certainly didn't plan for that.
Fate's a funny thing. It was just meant for him to win the race, and that was the only way with her strategy and stuff that when the 5 car spun out, the 5 car won the race for him. Basically, is what the way it wound up happening.
But there's been so many circumstances, Richard. Just like getting back to the 43, they worked on him all day and finally got it where he could halfway drive it and finish 22nd. That ain't good, but he beat some pretty decent cars.
Yeah, but he got so far behind.
Yeah,
his speed. If he'd have been running 5th or 6th, his speed was good enough for 5th or 6th.
Late in the race,
but everybody else's speed was good for 5th or 6th.
If you're a half a lap down running same as the
leaders, you're not gaining on it.
You can't gain on them.
But it wound up once the tires wore down. There was a few cars that could really run fast on new tires, and after they'd run 15 or 20 laps, then everybody run basically the same speed.
But then where the drivers managed their tires or their tires lasted long, they could pass again for the lead once in a while, because that 11 car, he went up and passed the 9 car late. That put the 43 down. And I'm sure the average fan wasn't watching that, but we did. But the most pressure going into the race this week will be on the 24 car, and next will be the 20 car
to make it in
to make it to the final 4.
Yeah.
Okay. And the 20, the 11, the 5, and the 12. Who else? They can just throw caution to the wind.
Yeah, they have to, though.
Yeah, and
you know what I mean. In other words, this is their last hurrah. If they don't make it here, they ain't gonna make it.
And what a track to do it on, Richard. I mean, your probably speeds up to, I don't know what top speed to be. What, 120 mile an hour maybe down to 45 or 50. And
maybe
it's drive at 45 or 50.
It's not very fast, but it's very close. That's a big deal.
And during all that time, there's going to be all these other people trying to get ready for next year and to prove themselves and make it for a shorter winter and everything. And it's always been like that.
I tell you, it's going to be interesting to see if Martinsville is as exciting a race as what Homestead was. Because, like I say, with Homestead, I mean, them guys running 15th and 20th and 30th, they was racing each other, man.
That, Richard,
yeah. I like to see that. Daytona and Talladega, you get in line and you pass somebody, and then they pass you back, and you're still running wide open. Down there, there was a little bit of handling and a whole lot of driving to be able to pass people. So that made it more interesting for me to watch.
Well, no matter what, it was certainly a handling track.
Yeah, definitely.
And tires made a difference.
Right.
And we've had some tracks where you could come in and get 2 tires and still run decent stuff like that. That did not happen.
They had to have 4 new tires every time they stopped.
So we're looking forward to Martinsville. Yeah. It's a short drive for me and you Sunday morning, and
it's going to be interesting, like you say, because the last place, the guy that's 4th or 8th right now in the point stand, if he wins the race, he's in.
Yeah.
Otherwise, he's not. So all that stuff, those guys is going to have to race for the win. Some of the other guys up front, they can just race for the points. So that's going to make it interesting strategy too. For what reason? I mean, we've run a bunch of races at Homestead, and that's by far the best race they've ever had. Some of the races at Phoenix have been pretty interesting. So, it's not up to me and Dale to make that decision.
I'm not the only thing I say about having it so far in Phoenix, most of the NASCAR fans are on the East Coast, and it's a long way for them to go. And from that standpoint, I'm not going to say where they should have the final race.
He didn't give up. He thought he could run faster. In other words, when he went in that corner, he thought this is the fastest groove for me. I mean, he didn't get out of the way of the 45, 54 car. What is it? 45 car. He didn't get out of his way to get him the deal. He done the very best that he knew, and he thought that groove would make him get through the corner quicker than the 45 car, but it didn't prove that way. But that 45 guy, he went in that third corner, I mean, faster than he'd ever went. I put it that way.
I'm not going to judge on it, but I bet he wished he had it to do over.
That's a good question. That's the reason we're going to run a race at Martinsville. Okay.
Well, they can't have two winners to lock in. And right now, the 20 car has got the best chance of getting in with the points that he's got. But, you know, a first lap wreck or a mechanical failure can put him out too. So no matter what, it'll be interesting right down to the end of the race.